"Step outside, sir. We've had complaints." The voice was sharp, commanding, like I'd just been caught committing a crime. But I was in my own driveway, barefoot, holding a cup of coffee. 2 squad cars blocked my mailbox. Neighbors peeked through blinds, whispering. The HOA president stood behind the officers, arms crossed, lips curled in satisfaction. To him, I wasn't a homeowner, just a problem that didn't belong in his perfect all-white cul-de-sac. I tried to stay calm. Tried to understand what could possibly justify police showing up at my door over a lawn. But what he didn't know was, in less than 7 minutes, his smug little world was about to collapse. Have you ever been judged by someone who had no idea who you really were? Tell us in the comments. Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. It was a quiet Saturday morning, the kind that smelled like fresh-cut grass and coffee. Marcus had just settled into his favorite chair on the porch, proud of the small home he and his wife Dana had built together. After years of saving, they'd finally moved into this tidy suburban neighborhood. The kind where every lawn looked like it came from a magazine and every mailbox matched. They were the only black family on the street. Not that it mattered to Marcus at first. He believed that hard work spoke louder than skin color. He waved to his neighbors, smiled at the dog walkers, and joined the neighborhood Facebook group trying to fit in. Dana, a U.S. Army officer recently back from deployment, was still adjusting to civilian life. Together they wanted peace. Nothing more. But that peace never lasted long. Subtle things started to happen. Notices slipped under their door. Petty complaints about their non-standard fence color. A warning about improper trash placement. Marcus brushed them off until the letters started coming weekly, signed by the HOA president himself. At first, Marcus thought it was just nitpicking. But one morning, he caught the president taking pictures of his car, muttering something about lowering property values. That was when it hit him. This wasn't about grass height or fences. It was about who they were. He told Dana they should ignore it. "Don't give them the satisfaction," he said. But she could see the worry in his eyes. The weight of being watched in your own home. Still, he tried to believe things would calm down. That maybe it was just a misunderstanding. He didn't know it yet, but the next letter wasn't going to be a warning. It was going to be an ambush. If you were in Marcus's place, trying to stay calm while someone clearly wanted you gone, what would you do? Marcus woke to the sound of tires crunching on gravel. It was early and too early for visitors. Through the blinds, flashing blue and red lights danced across his living room wall. 2 police cruisers idled at the curb. He froze. Then came the knock, hard, impatient, echoing through the house. He opened the door, confused, still in his robe. 2 officers stood there, hands resting near their holsters. Behind them, the HOA president smirked, phone in hand like he'd just won something. "Sir, we received a call about a disturbance," one officer said. Marcus blinked. "A disturbance? I was asleep." The officer's eyes darted past him, scanning his porch, his car, his windows. Neighbor reported aggressive behavior. "You mind stepping outside?" He could feel the neighbors watching again. Curtains moved. Phones lifted. This wasn't about a call. This was a show, a warning. The HOA president started pacing, pretending to explain. "We've had multiple complaints. The loud music, the unapproved vehicle, the attitude." His words dripped with superiority. "We have community standards here." Marcus clenched his jaw. There had been no music. The unapproved vehicle was his truck, paid in full, parked in his own driveway. He wanted to shout back, to call out the lies, but one glance at the officer's hands made him think twice. He remembered all the names, the headlines, the faces, men who didn't make it past this kind of misunderstanding. So he took a slow breath. "Officers, you can check. There's no disturbance. I just woke up." But they didn't move. One adjusted his stance, resting a hand on his belt. "Sir, we're going to need to verify that." And that's when Marcus saw it, the faint smirk from the HOA president. This was never about verifying anything. It was about humiliation. The officers began stepping forward. Marcus's heart thudded against his ribs. He wanted to call for Dana, but she was sleeping after a night shift. He didn't want her to wake up to this. Not again! He stood his ground, voice trembling but firm. You're in my home. I have rights. One of the officers gave a thin smile. Then you won't mind proving it. In that moment, Marcus realized how powerless he looked. A black man in his robe, surrounded by armed strangers, accused of disturbing the peace in his own neighborhood. And just when the silence grew unbearable, the door behind him opened. A slow, heavy creak. Dana's voice cut through the tension. Is there a problem here? The officers turned. For a second, everything stopped, because standing in the doorway, framed by morning light, was Dana, in full U.S. Army dress uniform. Polished metals gleaming. Rank displayed proudly. Marcus watched as every ounce of arrogance drained from the HOA president's face. The smirk vanished. The officers straightened, their tone shifting instantly. Ma'am, we were just responding to a report, one stammered. She didn't flinch. Her voice was steady, commanding. You're responding to a false report. My husband is standing in his own home. I suggest you verify your sources before you step onto our property again. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the wind brushing through the trees. Then quietly, the officers backed away. The HOA president stood frozen, face pale. He muttered something about a misunderstanding and turned to leave, but Dana's eyes locked onto his. You should be ashamed, she said softly. And somehow, that hit harder than any shout could have. The cruisers rolled away. The flashing lights faded. But the damage was done. The whole street had seen it. The whispers had already begun. Marcus stood beside his wife, his chest heavy with both relief and rage. Because this was what it took to be treated like a human being, and deep down, he knew it wasn't over. The HOA president wouldn't forget being humiliated in front of his perfect neighborhood. What do you think he'll do next? Would you confront him, or let karma handle it? The next week felt like walking through a storm that hadn't yet broken. The air in the neighborhood was thick, quiet stares, fake smiles, doors closing just a little too quickly when Marcus passed by. Dana tried to brush it off, but she saw it too. The tension. The way the HOA president's car slowed every time it passed their house. Then came the letter. Folded, hand-delivered, no envelope, taped right to their front door. Final warning, repeated violations. Failure to comply will result in legal action. Marcus stood on the porch, fists trembling. The grass was trimmed. The trash bins were inside. Every so-called violation they had been accused of was false. But this letter? This was retaliation. Dana told him to let it go, to document everything, to call a lawyer. But Marcus had reached his breaking point. He wasn't about to be run out of his own home. So he went to the HOA meeting. When he walked in, the room fell silent. Dozens of neighbors sat in metal folding chairs, whispering. At the front, the HOA board, and at the center, the president. Marcus sat at the back, feeling judgmental stares. The HOA president spoke of community standards and image. Marcus stood, voice sharp. The only image here is prejudice. You called the police on me, lied, to humiliate me because I don't belong in your eyes. Murmurs spread. Some neighbors looked away. The president snapped, "Watch your tone!" Then Dana, in uniform, metals gleaming, entered. "No one decides who belongs except the law I've served," she said. "You saw the police, the lies. If you're okay with that, say it." Silence. The president, pale, mumbled about overreacting. Marcus retorted, "You weaponized fear because of who I am." The meeting ended quietly, the president's hands shaking. Outside, Marcus and Dana walked away, leaving a heavy silence, one that forced the room to see what they'd ignored. What would you have done? Spoken up or stayed silent? The next morning, the neighborhood felt lighter. Neighbors nodded awkwardly at Marcus, guilt in their eyes. The president resigned, citing personal reasons. The HOA began diversity talks, a small step toward progress. Marcus felt seen, not just looked at. Dana became the quiet legend of the neighborhood. Some called her the one who shut the HOA down, but she never bragged. She just smiled and said, "I did what anyone should do, stood up for what's right." Still, the scars remained. Marcus couldn't unhear the knock on that door. He couldn't unsee the lights, the fear, the humiliation of being treated like a criminal in his own home. It changed the way he saw safety, not as a place but as something fragile, earned over and over again. But he also learned something powerful that day. Racism hides behind rules, uniforms, and titles. But it falls apart when truth walks in wearing courage. And maybe that's what people need to remember, that silence only feeds injustice, and exposure starves it. This wasn't just one man's story. It's a reflection of how easily ordinary moments can turn into battles for dignity. How something as small as a lawn complaint can reveal something as big as a nation's wound. Marcus and Dana still live in that same house. Not because they have to, but because they refuse to be pushed out of a place they earned. Their porch, their grass, their peace, all symbols now of quiet resilience.